And hello and welcome to a new episode of the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today. As you can see from the title, it is a all-related podcast to Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I didn't do the podcast, I think now for 2 weeks. One, because I had some family issues. Two members of my family got sick, and I was taking care of them. I wanted to be a good son, take care of them. And I actually did record a podcast last week, but it didn't go up because I was feeling a little bit under the weather, and I did get sick last week as well. Taking care of them, I got sick. What happens? But I did record a podcast. It didn't go up. It was totally my fault. It was a little off. There's a lot of stops in between, and it was way too much to edit out and take care of. So I'm back. I'm doing the podcast today, and what a better way to come back to the podcast than by doing one about one of the biggest movies that has come out, and one that is very decisive, or that is dividing fans across the field. So, Batman v Superman. Now, I did a written review of the movie. I'll put a link down below in the show notes / description area so you guys can go read it. I was very divided about the movie. There was a lot of parts that I really liked, and there were a lot of parts that just that weren't good, or that were very uneven, and it was okay. It wasn't as bad as a lot of people are saying it is. It's not a great movie. It isn't. And it's hard for me to say that because I am a fan. I've been wanting to see Batman, Superman on the big screen. But there are some, redeeming qualities about the movie. There aren't a lot of redeeming qualities about the movie, but there are some that I think can and will hold fans over. And this is a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you haven't seen Batman v Superman yet, don't listen to this podcast. I did a written review about the movie. It's up online, so you guys can go read it. But I want to take the time because there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about and that's been talked about online, and I just want to throw my 2 cents in there because it's a big movie that deserves to be talked about, whether it be good or bad. So let's talk about it. Let's divide this podcast a little bit in 3 parts: the pros, the cons, and the stuff I'm on the fence about, or the stuff I have mixed feelings about. So let's start off with the pros. Let's start off with a good lead-in. The beginning of the movie, the beginning that shows the Wayne's murder. Thomas and Martha Kent, which are played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohan, which coincidentally are gonna star in The Walking Dead together. But the beginning of the movie, it is visually one of the greatest moments in the film, and arguably the greatest moment of the film for me. It's so well done. It's visually amazing to look at. The way they kind of edited everything together, and the score by Hans Zimmer. It is one of the most, obviously Hans Zimmer, one of the best composers in Hollywood, but his score for this one is so beautiful. It totally fits into what the scene was. So for me, one of the biggest pros in the movie was the beginning of the film, and there's also a lot of visual cues that are taken straight from the comics too, which was nice to see. Another pro for the movie, for me, was one that a lot of people didn't like when it was first announced. There's a lot of things that were announced that people didn't like about the movie, but one of them being Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne slash Batman, or Batfleck, as many people have called him, and I will probably call him in this little section here. Everyone, pretty much everyone, bitched and moaned and complained, whatever, when it was announced that Ben Affleck was going to play, the next iteration of Bruce Wayne slash Batman. I was always behind Ben Affleck. I like Ben Affleck as an actor and now as a director. And there were some defenders of Ben Affleck out there. I'm not saying everyone. I did say everyone, but almost everyone. There was a very small percentage of defenders for Ben Affleck. But seeing now, his iteration of the character, we understand that this is an older Batman, an older Batman, an older Bruce Wayne. He's been doing the Batman thing for a while. I think Alfred, played by Jeremy Irons, which I will get to in a second, mentions that he's been doing it for, 20 years or something like that? Something along those lines. So he's this very, grizzled, to use a word that I think Zack Snyder used at the very beginning when they were talking about how the Batman was going to be, interpreted in this movie. He's a more grizzled, more experienced, he's seen stuff, man. I can't believe I just said that, but he has gone through a lot as Batman, and he even mentions, all these years in Gotham, how many good guys are left. So, he's a more older, more experienced, and he's a more brutal and aggressive and a hard-hitting Batman. He's probably one of the most aggressive Batmen that we've ever seen on the big screen. And I think for the universe that has been established and has been and is being created, it makes sense that he would be more aggressive, that he would be more brutal, that he would be more unforgiving when he's, fighting and he's taking down these criminals. He starts branding the criminals, which in the movie, is kind of, people are saying that, once you're branded by Batman, it's become a death sentence in prison, which is very odd that they would go that direction. But, Batman, or Bruce in this case, has his justification saying that they're criminals. They've always been criminals. Make the branding situation however you see fit. But I liked Ben Affleck's interpretation. You do get the fact that he is older. You do get the fact that, he's been doing this for a while. And, just overall, I like that he was this older version. I think the fact that they went older, what I'm trying to say is the fact that they went older was the best case scenario for Batman. Not everything worked. He's very during the nightmare sequence, nightmare with a K, by the way, as it's been dubbed and titled by promotional material. And I'll get to the nightmare sequence later on. He's very comfortable holding guns. That's probably gonna tick off a lot of Batman fans. That part didn't bother me too much, but I think it didn't bother me so much in the fact that you see what the world is in his nightmare sequence. Maybe you get the sense that, and again, you get the sense that he's seen a lot of stuff. He keeps Robin's old costume in the Batcave, with the spray paint on it by what we can all assume is the Joker. So, he's just very, he's seen all this stuff and he's very experienced. So maybe, he's taking this turn where he has to use guns. And it's not justification for him using guns, but because he's Batman. But, again, we don't know entirely what Zack Snyder was trying to do with his Batman. But we can get the assumption that he has been pushed to his limit, and now he has to use guns more comfortably in the world that the nightmare sequence tries to establish. I'm not saying it's justified, but whatever. All right. Continue on with Batfleck. One of the other things I liked was it was a standout scene, was the Batman solo combat scene at the very end of the movie when he's saving Martha. And I'll get to the Martha thing later on, by the way, too. the Batman solo combat scene was really great. Again, this shows that he's more aggressive. It shows that he's more, brutal, and he's very unforgiving. He literally punches a guy so hard in the face that the guy just his head just slams into the floor and makes a dent. I mean, I don't know how more brutal and unforgiving you can be with that. He rock bottoms someone earlier too. So that solo Batman scene was pretty cool to see, and it's very reminiscent also of the Arkham City, Arkham Knight games, which was pretty cool. I was a big fan of the Batman, the new iteration of the Batman, and a lot of people seem to be as well. I mentioned Jeremy Irons earlier playing Alfred. Jeremy Irons is good in pretty much anything he does. We can all agree on that. But his Alfred here is pretty cool. He's got some sass to him. He's not afraid to knock Master Wayne around a little bit when he gets the chance, which was really nice to see. But he's also more of Bruce and Batman's helper. Kind of more of a partner in crime. He helps him build the mech suit that he uses against Superman later on in the movie. He fixes up the Batmobile when he can, and he helps him out with the Batwing, if that's what you want to call it, when he goes to save Martha Kent. So I actually liked Alfred in this one. It kind of makes sense that he would be more helpful toward him. And I'm not knocking Michael Caine's version. I love Michael Caine. I loved his version of Alfred, but this version of Alfred, the one they're making for this new DC extended cinematic universe, or whatever officially they're calling it, seems more fitting for what they want to do. So another pro I had, which was another one that people were very pissed about, and they complained and they moaned, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman. More specifically her intro, but I'll get to that in a second. So, like Ben Affleck, everyone complained. Almost everyone complained. I shouldn't say everyone. Almost everyone complained about Gal Gadot being cast as Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman. And they were saying some really just dumb, sexist things like her breasts weren't big enough or whatever. And that honestly was one of the stupidest things I ever read about a casting. That, her breasts weren't big enough. I mean, come on, seriously? Really? Not everyone is shaped physically like a comic book character. Settle down. That was really dumb. So, and then she wasn't a big enough name. Everyone had their own opinion on it. But, once everyone saw her in costume, once everyone saw what she was capable of bringing to the character in the trailers and TV spots, and then seeing her for the first time in the trailer with the costume, doing some action tidbits, everyone was like, oh, yeah, no, yeah, I never said those things. Yes, you did. Shut up. She's a highlight of the movie, and I can tell that a lot of people were waiting a long time to see her because I saw the movie twice now. I've seen it twice. And both times in different theaters with different audiences and different crowds, the moment she appears at the end to help Batman and Superman fight Doomsday, there was a very loud applause, and everyone was happy to see her. So I'm pretty sure that everyone is finally happy to see Wonder Woman on the big screen, considering how long it took to finally get her on the big screen. And this is a version that everyone seems to be falling in line with. I like Gal Gadot. She's not the biggest name. She's mostly known for, I think she's probably only known, at least here in America, for the Fast and the Furious movies, but now she's taking on this character of Wonder Woman, which again is arguably one of the most popular and famous comic book characters of all time, and she seems to, it looks like she's going to handle it. Now, she doesn't have a big part in the movie. She has scenes here and there. Her biggest, overall scene is at the very end when she's helping fight Doomsday. And it looks like she's handling it well, Gal Gadot. It's really cool. One moment I really loved about the character, and it happens at the very end. It's right before Superman grabs a spear to go kill Doomsday, and right before she whips out the lasso of truth and wraps it around Doomsday. which was a really cool moment. But it was right before that moment, Doomsday kind of, hits her and knocks her down to the ground. And there's a shot where she's kind of looking up at Doomsday, and she kind of smirks or smiles at Doomsday. And there was something so telling about that. And it was something that I love. So it was this very minor detail that I love the fact that they did that. And it was, again, it's so telling of her character. I just don't know what it was. I really liked that moment. I noticed it the first time I saw it. I was like, huh, that's interesting. And the second time that I saw it, I just fell in love with it all over again. It's just, it's I don't know, it's just so telling about her character that she's gonna fight, and she's finally met someone that is gonna fight back, and I don't know, just it's a great moment. I'm gonna switch it up, and I'm gonna go with the cons instead of the stuff I'm in the middle. I'll end the stuff with as I titled it, on the fence kind of stuff. So let's go with the cons. A lot of people are saying that Batman v Superman it's a bit long, and it is for a guy that doesn't really, me by the way, for a guy that doesn't really mind a film's runtime. I don't care if it's a long movie as long as it's justified. Batman v Superman, there was some stuff they probably could have cut out. The movie's longer than it is. The movie's almost 3 hours. And Zack Snyder has already said that they're releasing an ultimate cut later this year. I think a news item just came out today. I think I read it today that the super cut will be released in June or July. No, July. It's gonna be released in July, and you'll get to see more stuff. You'll get to see Jenna Malone's character, who isn't in the theoretical cut. You'll get to see a scene with Superman that was apparently cut out. You get to see more violence, apparently. So, it's a 2.5 hour movie, but it still feels very busy and messy. And that might have to do with editing. And I'll get to a part of the editing that really stuck out to me both times in the movie later on. But the movie is too busy and messy. And that's one of the reasons why I think Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice kind of fails on some levels, is because it's too busy. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of stuff that gets brought up and kind of just doesn't get resolved, or if it does get resolved, it's very unsatisfying and it's very underwhelming. And again, it might be because they filmed a 3 hour movie and they cut it down to 2.5 something minutes. And I hate to say it, because it's one of those things where it's like, you don't want to compare. I don't like comparing movies, but especially near the end, when they were building and trying to build up this universe, it kind of falls. How do I put this? It becomes somewhat The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I hate saying it, because it's the thing with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is that there was a lot going on there too. It was a bit messy and it was a bit odd, and there was pacing issues, and there's some pacing issues within Batman v Superman. But there's a lot of stuff that it feels out of place. It's too busy trying to build the world. Like the expanding of the world that they're trying to do, it happens within 5 minutes. When Wonder Woman gets the picture that she was looking for, she sees all these files, which I'll get to in a bit, of the Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman, and it all happens within a span of 5 minutes, with the security footage. It's just kind of thrown in. It's not kind of thrown in there. It feels a bit fan servicey, but at the same time, the fact that it's all happening at once is what kind of makes that scene feel very underwhelming and unsatisfying, because you're putting all your balls. I know, I'm a 5-year-old. Putting all your balls in the court at the same time. You don't want to do that. And that's why Amazing Spider-Man 2, despite the fact that it wasn't that great of a movie, one of the reasons it wasn't that great of a movie is because it was trying to expand and build a world too fast. And that's one of the problems that I think Batman v Superman faces, in that it's building the world a bit too fast. We know it's coming. It's called Dawn of Justice. We know what the justice means. Justice League. But I think the fact that they were trying to do everything so fast within the movie, in this movie, it doesn't feel right. So it's a bit messy and it's a bit too busy. Now this one, it's a con, but it's a little nitpicky. Just a little nitpicky. But I think it's kind of justified considering the character. So if you were like me and were wondering, was that guy with the camera at the beginning of the movie Jimmy Olsen? Wait a minute. Did they just kill Jimmy Olsen? Yes. Yes, they did. The character at the beginning of the movie with the camera was, in fact, Jimmy Olsen. You know, one of the biggest supporting characters in Superman comics ever. They killed Jimmy Olsen. Why? Because Zack Snyder said, well, Jimmy Olsen doesn't really fit within the world and the universe that we're trying to build. Really? Now, you can make that argument considering that Jenny, you know, the character within the Daily Planet, she's referred to a lot in this one. Jenny was it felt like she was being molded to be the Jimmy Olsen of the universe. Her name's Jenny, after all. So, that could be okay. If they were going to do that, then fine. Okay. But, the fact that you actually bought Jimmy Olsen into the movie, and he's not even a major character because he gets killed off pretty much as soon as he gets introduced, that's kind of, I don't know, it doesn't feel right. Even this is coming, and again, this is coming from a guy that knows comic book material is going to get changed in the movies for one thing and one way or another, because there's stuff that works in the comic books that doesn't work on film, and there's stuff that's on film that, you know, you can change within, you know, there's stuff in the comics that you can change in film and do it a different way. But when you take a character like Jimmy Olsen, who again is one of the biggest supporting characters in Superman comics history, and you kill him off as soon as he comes on because he doesn't fit within the universe that you're doing, don't introduce him then. Don't make him Jimmy Olsen. Make him some other character. You know, if what I think Zack Snyder was trying to do with the Jenny character was create a new Jimmy Olsen within the universe, that's fine. Stay with that. But don't introduce Jimmy Olsen and then make him, for some reason, a CIA operative only to get killed within the 3 minutes that he's introduced. That doesn't make any sense. Again, probably being nitpicky, but I think it's justified considering who the character is. And if it doesn't fit within the universe, again, don't introduce him. Just make him another character. I don't know. Very nitpicky. I didn't know I had a feeling it was Jimmy Olsen. And when I was in the theater, you know, I sat down for the first time. By the way, this is the first time I watched it, not the second time. I was wondering, God, I hope they didn't kill off Jimmy Olsen so fast. It didn't make sense to me. All right, whatever. The second nitpicky thing was that they killed off Mercy Graves, Lex Luthor's assistant. Now, for those of you that don't know who she is, and you just thought that she was just a random character, Mercy Graves does actually have a history in the comics. Sometimes she's a man, sometimes she's a woman, sometimes the character is changed to a man. But overall, Mercy Graves is kind of the right-hand woman, man, person that's connected to Lex Luthor. So when it was announced that she was going to be in the movie, you know, I think a lot of people were kind of excited to see her get a big screen appearance, and maybe that she would be in the movie at least a little longer than she was. You know, she doesn't do much overall in the short time that she's in the movie. She's only in the first half of the film. But the fact that they just the fact that she just killed her, especially the way they did, because she died in the Senate bombing, was, I don't know, it was very kind of unsatisfying. It was like, you introduced this character, you know, she may not have, even if she survived the movie, even if she went on and, you know, did whatever, you know, she could have been a great background, she could have been a great supporting character, a great background character to play off Lex Luthor. Because you're gonna have Lex, and you're gonna probably have him surrounded by all these, superpowered people like Darkseid, which we'll talk about in a second. Or you got Doomsday who appears in the movie. Maybe you'll have Brainiac, which has been rumored that he'll appear in the future Justice League films. You need a human villain, and Lex, yes, he is one of the biggest human villains within the DC Comics, and the DC Comics world. But maybe you kind of need someone that can help him out, and I think Mercy Graves would have been a great character, but you killed her off, and that's kind of disappointing. Again, that was just me. Again, that was just me being nitpicky. But that was it. I'm more nitpicky about the Jimmy Olsen thing because it felt unnecessary. In all honesty. All right, so the last thing. I know some people are gonna hate me for this. Probably some people agree with me. Some. Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. Now I know some people liked it, and I can see why people would like it. I just wasn't a fan of it. I give people a chance all the time when they get casted in roles, especially comic book movies, because you don't know how they're gonna go about it. You don't know what the studio's thinking. You don't know what they're gonna do, which is fine. That's great. But I unfortunately did have, like many people on the internet, a knee-jerk reaction when Jesse Eisenberg was cast as Lex Luthor. Not because he was a bad actor. I think Jesse Eisenberg is a great actor when you give him, and he's an exceptional actor when you give him the right material. But I had that reaction because Jesse Eisenberg, it was just someone that I never imagined or thought could play Lex Luthor. Everyone wanted him to be older. A lot of people were rooting for that rumor that came out that Bryan Cranston was going to play Lex Luthor, which would have been cool, but they went younger, which is fine. Everyone was waiting to see how, they were going to go with Eisenberg's Luthor. And that picture came out of him with the bald hair, looking very menacing, and everyone was like, all right, this is going to happen. Of course, that doesn't happen until the end of the movie, when he goes in prison, but, okay. So everyone saw him with hair, and they're like, all right, something's going to happen that's going to cause him to go bald, because we already know he goes bald because of the picture they released before. Then we saw the trailer and TV spots, and everyone was a little confused. There was a lot of mixed reaction to him playing the role, but I still gave him a chance. I said, okay, we're only seeing bits and pieces. Maybe we don't know, and we don't know what's really going on within the scenes of the trailer. And then we finally saw the alliteration of his character. That was different. It was different, alright. It was a different alliteration of the Lex we've seen before. Alright, so I get the fact that he's younger. This is a younger Lex Luthor, and maybe acts as a bit of an origin story for him as well. Because, this is the first time we're seeing him in the universe. But the thing that kind of bothered me was the fact that he acts a bit too unhinged. There's something about, I don't mind unhinged characters. People that aren't all there. People that have this, different way of looking at the world. That's fine. That's all well and good and great. But what they did with Lex in Batman v Superman, it just didn't, I didn't buy it. There was something odd about the character. The whole unhinged thing is, it can only go so far. He has this obsession, and the version of, his justification for being this way, it felt like they were saying, okay, he has daddy issues, because he mentioned that his father beat him, and that he showed him his abominations. It's an exact word he used. And it might be that might be a reason why he's acting this way. Another reason he's acting this way is that now, this is a guy that has a lot of power. This is a guy that he's one of the richest men in the world, and he's seeing Superman, a god or a demon, as he calls him sometimes, flying around and being praised. And he wants to prove the world wrong. He wants people to see that Superman is actually a demon. He doesn't want Superman to be praised. It seems justified, it seems, and he goes on this thing about God being, if he's all good, then he can't be all powerful, and if he's all powerful, he can't be all good. So he has this very he's very anti, God complex kind of thing. That's not really the right term to use. I don't know. There was something off about it. I just didn't buy the character. It seemed, I think he has one true villain moment in the movie, and it's when he finally reveals to Superman that he has Martha, his mother, Martha Kent. I think that's like the one real true villain moment that he has. He's kind of just he's kind of very cocky, and he's kind of just literally throwing the pictures at Superman and on the floor. And I thought, okay, that's a great moment. But the fact that his performance is just, it's a little, I didn't buy the performance before then. It kind of just takes that scene down a notch for me. Maybe I'm just being nitpicky. I don't know. But there was something about this version of Lex that we're going with and for that I didn't buy. I wasn't buying it. He seems very out there. He seems just, he doesn't like when he doesn't like when, I felt like he doesn't like when people have more power than he does. And he's cocky, but he's not good cocky. He doesn't have this, he doesn't have a charisma behind him to be cocky. It just seems like he's being annoying. And you're just hoping that Superman just punches him and he goes flying off to the sky. Okay, fine, that's great. But I don't think you want that in a Lex Luthor character. You want cocky, sure, but you want him to have some charm behind him. You want that cockiness to be, you don't want it to be annoying. You want it to be strong. You want it to be a different kind of cocky. You want it to be kind of some swagger and some confidence behind it. You don't want him to be cocky and annoying. You want him to be cocky and powerful. And for Lex, I just don't get it. Maybe they'll change him later. Maybe we'll see him become more powerful and more confident and carry himself differently now that he knows that the world is going to change. I doubt it, since it's already been established he's a bit crazy, but who knows. Again, this is just me. I didn't like the character. I know a lot of people don't like, and not a lot of people, but I know there's people out there that don't like Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. And if you do like him, hey, that's fine. Again, I saw moments where his character was great. I think his one big villain moment and his best moment was the reveal that he knows, that he has Martha. All right, let's move on to the on the fence. The moments that were okay, or that they were good, but they were moments where I was like, you know what? I don't know how I feel about this still. Some of them involve Lex Luthor, by the way. So the first one I want to talk about is, does Lex Luthor know about Darkseid? Now, Darkseid, I think I said Darkseid earlier. I'm sorry for that. I know that probably pissed off a lot of comic book fans. I meant Darkseid. Sorry. Forgive me for that. So does he know about Darkseid? Now, Darkseid, for those of you guys who don't know, is a big character. He's kind of like the Thanos of the DC Comics world. He's this big character. He's really powerful, and then he's the ruler of his own planet called Apokolips. And he has these parademons that work for him as underlings, which we see in the Nightmare sequence. I'll come back to that. I got this whole thing about the Nightmare sequence later on. But, does he know about Darkseid? Again, I'm sorry that I called him Darkseid earlier. Darkseid. Does he know about Darkseid? And the question, or the answer is, I think he does. Now, the movie leaves a lot of things ambiguous. Maybe two things for its own good, and that's another reason why it's kind of, Again, it's a 3-hour movie that they cut down, but whatever. So at the end, when Lex gets arrested, or well, Lex is in prison. Well, he's arrested. Obviously, he gets thrown in prison. Lex refers to someone as he when he's talking to Batman. And you don't know who the he is. But we know that Lex spent time in the fallen Kryptonian ship. But today there was a scene that was released, a deleted scene, that showed his arrest. We see soldiers going into the Kryptonian ship and finding Lex in front of this big, mysterious looking character. That was, again, it was a deleted scene. It's online. If it's still up when I release a podcast, I'll put it down below in the description, show notes area. So it's a scene of the soldiers coming down, and it's essentially him getting arrested. But he's in the goo of the Kryptonian ship, and the soldiers are coming in, and they see the figure, and he looks like kind of metallic a little bit. You know, it kind of looks like he's made of the material when Jor-El in Man of Steel, when Jor-El is talking to Clark and he's telling him the history of Krypton and his people. That's what he kind of looks like. So the creature appears, and in front of him are these boxes. What are they called? The mother boxes. That's what they're called. The mother boxes in the comics, and I'll talk about mother boxes again later in a bit. But and the mother boxes have their own history in the comics. I'm sure they'll talk about that in the movies, hopefully. If you don't, you can go up online, because there's this whole thing about mother boxes, but I'm not going to get into it. But it's this creature, and he's standing in front of Lex, and he disappears when the soldiers come to him. And Lex, we already know that he's been learning about Kryptonians from the ship, because, you know, he's standing in there and he's learning about them with the archives, you know, earlier in the movie. So we know he knows about Kryptons, or Kryptonians. But, you know, when he references he at the end of the movie, you're wondering, okay, is he talking about Darkseid? And yes, he is talking about Darkseid. Because when the scene has been out, there's some people saying, potentially identifying the monster, the mysterious figure in front of Lex, as being, I wrote down the name because I already forgot it. What's the name? Steppenwolf, which is the uncle of Darkseid in the comics. So either Lex is talking about Darkseid, or he's actually talking about Steppenwolf. We don't know. But it's a very cool reveal, and I think if they put that scene in the movie, it would have been very interesting, and I think it would have led to a lot more questions than answers. But being a deleted scene, I think it's okay. I'm surprised they actually released the scene online, which I thought that was very weird. But it makes sense that Lex would know about Darkseid at the end of the movie, if that is who indeed he's talking about. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's very interesting. That's something I'm on the fence about, only because it connects to my other thing that I'm about to say right now, which is that Lex gives the League members their own symbols, or that he knows about the other League members, or potential League members. Lex has files on these other people that we see in the movie, and they're files on what has been called by him and Senator Finch, played by Holly Hunter in the movie, as the metahuman thesis. Now, the metahumans is obviously, you can take a guess that metahumans are people with gifted powers. So Lex has files on Wonder Woman, as we see with the picture, the Flash, which we'll get to in a second, played by Ezra Miller, that we see, you know, he saves the convenience store guy, Aquaman, played by Jason Momoa, and Cyborg, played by a relatively newcomer Ray Fisher. The Wonder Woman symbol comes from the actual picture that Wonder Woman's in, so he doesn't really give her that symbol. The Flash, you know, we see the familiar lightning bolt. Now you could just assume, okay, Lex gave him the lightning bolt because he was fast. I don't know, or he saw him running in, you know, the lightning bolt pattern, and he was like, all right, let's name him that. Cyborg, it's just the C. We don't really. It's again, we don't know any of that. But Aquaman, he gives him the A, which could be for either Aquaman or the fact that Lex Luthor knows that the guy, his human identity, if that's what you want to call it, is Arthur Curry. Now again, the whole symbol thing and the fact that Lex has these files could be the fact that Lex knows who Superman is. He calls him by his Earth name, Clark Kent. We can assume that, we can't assume, we know that Lex knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman because he's the one that's been sending him those cryptic, messages saying, you let your family die, which in the trailer we all saw, and we just assumed that was like, oh, it's the Joker. Obviously, it's the Joker. It's not. It was Lex. So they make Lex this, in the movie, they make Lex this very all-knowing, he's not only is he powerful and he's rich, but he knows, he's not stupid, he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. And he eventually figures out that, Clark Kent is Superman. Now we can make that assumption that did he really know beforehand with the Africa incident, or did he know because of the Kryptonian ship? That's the one thing that's not really clear. You can assume that he knows him, that he knew that he was that Clark was Superman before that, but we don't know. So the League members, and that being said, I'm going to go a little bit also into the introduction of the future League members as well. So with the whole symbol thing, it's nitpicky, sure, but at the same time, it's showing that Lex, his obsession with powered people. He's been obsessed for a while. It's not just a new thing with Superman. Unless it was Superman that started the whole, meta-human thesis thing going, and Lex has just been, picking up these things time and time again. Or, throughout time, before Superman even arrived. So, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how everything pans out. Maybe we'll get more into it later on. In the movies, not here on the podcast, in the movies. Alright, so the introduction to the League members. It was handled very weird. Again, it was handled very weird. It felt very, I mentioned earlier, it felt very much like the movie was going down the Amazing Spider-Man 2 route, where they're being introduced all within the span of like 5 minutes through security cam surveillance footage, which is whatever. It's a good way, I guess, but at the same time, it felt very rushed, and it felt weird. Not weird, but it felt very rushed, and I don't think it was a good way to introduce the League members. It felt very fan servicey. I think I mentioned that earlier. It felt very fan servicey. It was like, all right, you know what? Let's just throw him in there. Let's just, it's called Dawn of Justice. Let's just throw him in there. See what happens. I don't know. The scene was rushed for me. Felt very out of place. I don't know. I didn't buy the scene. But the introduction, you get the Flash has already had an introduction before the surveillance camera. Again, I'll get to him in a minute. But the Flash, with him saving, it was very short and sweet. We have Aquaman, who destroys this, kind of underwater. Obviously, they're underwater, or they're in water. Kind of this explorer machine. And then, if you notice, he actually kind of swims away, kind of at super speed. It kind of looks like he's breaking the barrier of sound, kind of like Superman does, but in water. Which I thought was very cool, because it's Aquaman. You can make all the jokes about him, but if he's in the water, he's kind of powerful. And he does have the trident. We've already seen pictures of him. We saw a picture of him too. They released a picture of him as well. So his look is already out there to the world. And Cyborg. Now Cyborg is the wild card here, because not a lot of people know who Cyborg is. And if you're sitting there, especially casual moviegoers, they probably don't know who he is. So if you're sitting there wondering, who the hell is this guy? Now you know. He's Cyborg. And he has his own history in the comics. And if he was a member of Teen Titans at some point, but now with the relaunch of the new 52, he got a new origin story a bit. He's become an actual founding member of the Justice League. So it looks like they're taking that approach to him. And he'll have his own movie later on. It's going to be released, I believe, in 2020. If we're all still alive at that point, hopefully. Did I just kill us all? I think I just did. So the doctor that's operating on him is actually his father, and he finds this way to save his son, the box. Now the box, as I mentioned earlier, with another character, it's actually a mother box. And in the comics, in the recent iteration of the comics, Cyborg is very connected to the mother box. So the mother box gives him his cybernetic body. I don't know how they're going to go with it in the movie, but maybe Cyborg will have a bigger role that we know. Maybe he'll be more connected to Darkseid. Again, I don't know how they're going to go with Cyborg. None of us do, because they haven't really released anything. Movie's so far off. He will be in Justice League in the movie, but we'll see what happens. Yes, because Cyborg, a lot of these movies are coming out after the Justice League movie. I don't know how they're going to do it, because we got Wonder Woman, we got Suicide Squad coming out first, then Wonder Woman, then Justice League Part 1, and then we got the solo movies for The Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg. I think Cyborg may come out after Justice League Part 2. And then you have the Green Lantern movie. So yeah, I don't know. I forgot the actual schedule. I should have pointed that out, or pulled it out, not pointed it out. Yeah, it's very, the scheduling is very weird. We'll see what happens. Again, it's still there's still a lot of time left. We don't know how they're going to go about it with everything. Let's just hold off. So the introduction of all the characters is seen through Wonder Woman's eyes, who kind of finally sees that there are other people that are special and have powers like her and Superman. And I don't know, it didn't feel right. It just looked weird. It didn't look weird, but it was handled weird. I keep using the word weird. I don't know what it is. For some reason I can't think of another word, or the word I really want to use, but whatever. It just wasn't handled right. Let's put it that way. Alright. Let's talk about, finally, the nightmare scene. The nightmare scene with a K. Yes, as it's been coined by, again, marketing and toys and all that stuff. So the nightmare scene, a lot of people have a lot of stuff to say about it online. Some people are saying is it a dream or is it a prophecy? Did Batman look into the future and see the world that he's feared that Superman would bring onto the world? So, okay. Let's say it is a nightmare. Now, one of the things that I kind of realized, or came to a realization once I saw the scene play out in the movie, was that it would have been so much better, or the scene itself would have had a much more better impact if they had kept that scene to themselves. If they didn't show that scene if they didn't reveal that scene in the trailers. I think there would have been something so more impactful about that scene if we didn't know it was coming. I don't know. Knowing that it was there, knowing that it was a nightmare scene, as some people were calling it, it kind of took away some of the impact that the trailer had. Now the twists, the final kind of moments that we see, we see Superman killing Batman's people, without mercy, just goes in there and just beat with the eyes, and that's it. They're done. They're dead. And then, he looks at Batman. He takes the mask off at first, and he kind of just I don't know what he does. He just kind of, I guess he force pushes Batman's chest. I don't know. It felt like it would have had more impact if we didn't know that scene. But we know the scene. But now seeing it in its whole entirety. So here's the things that we have to look at in the nightmare scene. One, the big one, is that when Batman comes out of the bunker, we see the Omega symbol on the ground. Now, the Omega symbol is connected in the comics to, wait for it, Darkseid. So is Batman actually seeing the future where Darkseid is ruling and turning Earth to his own planet of apocalypse? Or does it have more of a double meaning? Just to jump ahead a little bit, The Flash. And yes, that was The Flash. I'm pretty sure people have already assumed that before I said it. When he visits Bruce, he tells him that he was right about him. Although we don't know who the him is, we can assume it's probably Superman because of what he saw. Has Superman finally lost it? He does mention Superman in the nightmare scene, that she was my world and you took her from me. And we can assume that he's talking about Lois because he, Superman, says at the end to Lois, right before he sacrifices himself, saying, you're my world. This is my world. And that he loves her and he sacrifices himself. And it's even the Flash who says that Lois is the key. So we know going forward in Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2 that Lois Lane is the key to something. That Lois is important and it is an important part to Superman and possibly keeping him from going all mad Titan crazy and killing everyone. So we can assume that in this future that Batman sees that Lois is dead and that Superman has gone evil. But can we assume that Superman is maybe all evil? What if, yes, Lois is dead, but Superman was pushed to do all that stuff for another reason? What if he's brainwashed? It's possible. It just so happens that in the comics, Darkseid is known to sometimes mess around with people's minds and brainwash them. Superman could be brainwashed by Darkseid. We don't know. It's not entirely out of the realm of possibilities. This is a comic book franchise after all. My theory with all this, being the comic book fan myself, we know that Superman isn't dead. And I'll get to that in a second. We know he isn't dead because we see the dirt rise. What if now that he's back, now that he's alive again, he kind of disappears for a while? We don't see him in Justice. What if he doesn't come back in Justice League right away? What if he comes back at the very end to help the Justice League fight off? Whoever the villain is. What if it is Darkseid or someone else? What if he's what if he's just looking on? He doesn't know if he wants to come back, or maybe he's not. Maybe he comes back to life because something is forcing him to come back. What if he's brainwashed by Darkseid? And the Justice League Part 1 is actually the Justice League trying to break Superman away from Darkseid's brainwashing. We don't know. Fun little theories. Theories are always fun. Plausible theories are always fun. The nightmare scene, again, I think it would have been more effective seeing the whole scene as a whole to keep away from the trailers and TV spots. But again, we don't run marketing, so whatever. And another thing that connects the nightmare scene to Darkseid is the parademons. If you're wondering what the things flying around, those are parademons. They're underlings of Darkseid. And that's the other thing, that the reason why I'm on the fence is that Batman doesn't know about Darkseid yet. And I'm jumping ahead of myself how I want to do this, but might as well just talk about it. Batman doesn't know anything at this point. He doesn't know about Kryptonite. He doesn't know about Darkseid. He doesn't know about parademons. The important thing is that he doesn't know about Kryptonite yet. The way the scene plays out is that he's asleep, essentially. That he's having a nightmare. But he sleeps in front of the computer and he has this nightmare before he sees the files. He doesn't know about Kryptonite yet. So how is he dreaming about Kryptonite before he actually knows about Kryptonite? And I don't know, how does he get parademons in his nightmare if he doesn't know about Darkseid? Is he just assuming that they're just Kryptonian monsters that have wings and they look like that? I don't know. That's why I'm on the fence, and that's why that's why it's in this section, because Batman doesn't know about any of that stuff before he goes to sleep. It's again, pacing, not even pacing, it's editing. That's an editing issue. I don't know. Batman already has nightmares in the movie. We know that. We see we see Man-Bat. Essentially, that's Man-Bat. It's a character in the comics. attacking Bruce in his nightmare, bursting out through his mother's grave, and biting him. That was interesting. That was an interesting dream. I don't know how that scene fits. I don't know. Leave that alone. That's how the movie is. I don't know. We'll just leave it at that. All right, so let's talk about the Flash. We see him in the armored suit. There's rumors going around that he's not going to wear the usual suit that we know him as. He's going to be wearing an armored suit this time, and he has like a face plate that protects his face, and it goes back, and that's actually kind of cool. I don't know. The armor, I guess it makes sense. Maybe we'll find out. His message to Bruce, about Lois being the key. You were right about him. He also mentions that you have to find us and bring us together. He's talking about the Justice League. I thought that was really interesting. The other thing that he mentions is that I'm too soon. So we know, for those of you who don't know too much about the Flash is known for time traveling, and he's known for going back in time in certain stuff, and he's known for He's even known for messing up the timeline in some cases. But the fact that he's traveling to Bruce and he says that he's too soon is very telling. It's telling because we don't know. Again, it's a pacing issue because he has these visions before he actually sees the stuff in Luthor's system computer. But it's telling for the Flash that he's too soon because we don't know what's going to happen. So will that scene of the Flash going back in time appear in the Justice League movies? That's the question. So if Superman does come back, and let's say he's fine, he's normal, he comes back, he's protecting the Justice League, he's part of the members. What happens if Darkseid brainwashes Superman, or something happens to Lois in the Justice League movies, and the Flash says, you know what? Let's go back. Let's warn Bruce. Let's say that scene happens in the Justice League. We don't know. It could happen, and then the fact that he goes back too soon is him going back too soon going to mess up the timeline later on within the other movies. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. And again, it's the movie's asking a lot more questions than it probably should, but we'll leave it at that. Now, the final thing with the Flash appearing, we assume it's a dream because it happens right after the nightmare sequence. However, it might not be a dream because we see papers flying in the air when Bruce wakes up. So maybe it's not a dream. Maybe the Flash stuff does happen. Or maybe they're both connected and the Flash bought some sort of memory to Bruce when he was asleep. Again, we don't know. And that's the problem with when you have editing issues in a movie. You're asking these questions, but it's interesting that they would bring the Flash in to warn Bruce about him being right about him. We're assuming it's Superman, but what if it's not Superman? What if it's someone else? We assume it's Superman because he's fighting Superman in the movie, but the Flash also mentions that he's too soon. So who is he talking about? Let's just assume that he is talking about Superman. Then everything that we saw in the nightmare scene could be true. Or something else happens. Again, too many too many questions going on to be answered, but for the sake, we're just going to assume that it is Superman. But let's move on with that. I mentioned a big moment earlier, and it's a big moment in the movie. And it's kind of bittersweet's not the word. I don't know why bittersweet popped in my head. It's not bittersweet. It's confusing. It's unsatisfying. Let's put it that way. It's unsatisfying not in the sense that the scene happened. It's unsatisfying knowing what's gonna happen afterwards. Superman dies. And when we found out that Doomsday was in the movie, a lot of fans assumed, okay, we know what happens in the comics. In the comics, Superman, Doomsday fight to the death, literally. Superman dies, Doomsday dies, that's it. Superman is dead. So when Doomsday was introduced, or people said that he was going to be in the movie, everyone assumed, okay, are they going to have the balls to kill off Superman? Yes, they had the balls to kill off Superman, sort of. It's in the comics. Superman's dead for a while, but he comes back and, does this Superman thing. I have to applaud Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder, which is odd to say considering the movie was just okay, that the fact that they actually went with killing off Superman. And they're playing it off like he's actually dead. I don't know again, we don't know what's going to happen yet. But the fact that they actually killed off Superman was pretty ballsy, because you don't expect it to happen. I mean, you kind of get this feeling, okay, like he's going to have to fly in, and he's going to have to get the spear, and we see that Wonder Woman cut off his hand, and now he has like a spike hand. It's okay, it was going to happen. Superman's going to die. The only one that can get close enough, it's not going to be Batman. He's going to die right away. It can't be Wonder Woman, because she's holding on to him with the lasso of truth. It has to be Superman. He goes in, he stabs him, not enough. Doomsday grabs him, stabs him in the chest, and Superman drives his spear more into Doomsday and finally kills him. Okay. Wow, they killed Superman on the big screen. Cool. Well, not cool. Well, I guess it is kind of cool. They had the balls to do it. And they do the funeral scene and everything. But deep down, he's not going to stay dead for long. Yes, it's a comic book movie. Yes, in the comics, death is not absolute all the time. And you can't have a Justice League movie without Superman. It's just not possible. Even Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers aren't that dumb enough to know that you can't have a Justice League movie without Superman in some form or another. I just hit the microphone. Sorry about that. You can't possibly do that. You can kill off a character, sure. Is it absolute? Who knows? And with Superman, obviously, is not absolute. I applaud them for doing that. I applaud them for killing off Superman. It's a big moment. It is. And it works because it allows Bruce to now find these other people and bring them together. He says that he's not going to fail him in death. Talking about Superman and Clark Kent. He's going to do something to honor him. He's going to do something to protect the world from whatever is going on. And again, pacing issue, and not pacing, I keep mentioning pacing, editing issues comes up. The scene with Lex happens when he's talking to Diana, Wonder Woman. So does that scene take place before the funeral or after the funeral? We don't know. We can assume that it's probably before, because, Lex mentions to Batman again that he's coming. The bell has been rung. They're going to come now. He's going to come now. The new gods are going to come. I don't think he mentions new gods, but we can assume he's talking, because he mentions the god is dead, and he's talking about Superman. So if it happened before the funeral, then Bruce now having the nightmare scene, having the Flash come in, even though he doesn't probably fully understand it, and having Lex kind of confirm someone is coming. It makes sense to be like, okay, Superman's dead. One of our biggest allies that we could have had is dead. We need to find these other people, bring them together to fight, because now that he's gone, someone's going to take this as an opportunity to come after us again. That makes sense. Okay, someone dies, someone powerful, a friend dies. You need that moment to bring people together. Kind of like in the Avengers. Again, don't like comparing movies, but kind of like in the Avengers. When they killed off Coulson, and brought the Avengers together to face Loki. In this it's not a supporting character, it's Superman, the biggest, strongest person on the planet. So that's why I'm on the fence, because the scene works in the sense that, okay, they killed off Superman. That's a big moment. Again, I applaud them for having the guts to do that. But it also gives Bruce and Diana a moment together, knowing who they are now in Wonder Woman and Batman, to bring them together and be like, okay, we need to do something about this. We need to prepare, because someone is coming for us. But at the other end of the spectrum, we know Superman isn't going to stay dead for a long time. Okay, they killed him. Okay, the shock's over. They're having a funeral. But we know Justice League is coming. We know all these other movies are coming. That moment of, wow, they killed him, goes away right away, knowing, okay, he's not going to stay dead for long. Sure, he's dead now. He's going to come back in Justice League, probably. I don't know. It's Again, it's not bittersweet. Or maybe it is bittersweet. I don't know. The bittersweet keeps popping in my head. I don't know why. It doesn't blend well. It's not a very substantial, concrete feeling or answer. We know he's gonna come back. You can't have a Justice League movie without Superman. You can't. I mean, you can. It's not gonna work well. Again, unless he appears at the very end, and helps out the Justice League, being like, "Hey guys, I'm not dead after all." But I don't know. That's a moment a moment on the fence. Another moment, because I said I was gonna mention this. Martha. You're letting him kill Martha for whatever reason. I have been a fan for a very long time. And I've known these characters. I know, the origin story. Like many of us know the origin story now at this point. And for whatever reason, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it is. It never came to my mind that Batman's mother was named Martha and that Superman's human mother was named Martha. It never came to my mind that both of them were named Martha. Never. That thought never crossed my mind. It wasn't until I watched, I was like, oh my, I was literally sitting in the theater, dumbfounded. I was still watching the movie, I was paying attention. But I was dumbfounded afterwards, like, I can't believe both of them are actually named Martha in the comics. And I went home and checked, just to make sure, just in case that wasn't a thing they threw in the movie. No, they're both named Martha. You know how stupid I felt when I found that out? It's one of those very unsatisfying things that ends the fight. Batman has Superman right there. He's about to kill him. Lois Lane comes in, and she tells him, she tells Batman to stop, and Batman's screaming at him, why did you say that name? And Lois tells him that his mother's name was Martha, and that makes him stop because his mother's name was Martha too. I don't know. I mean, obviously we knew. We knew. Okay, Batman and Superman are gonna fight, and it's gonna be awesome to watch. And the fight scene was pretty decent. It was a lot more brutal than I thought it was gonna be. But it was a pretty decent fight. I wish it could have gone on a little longer, but whatever. Maybe we'll get it in the extended cut. I don't know, or the ultimate cut. But the way the scene and the fight ended was it was Batman and Superman saying, "Oh, coming together." We knew they were going to come together. We knew they weren't going to kill each other. They were going to come close to killing each other, but we knew they weren't going to kill each other. It was this moment of them coming to a realization that both of their mothers' names were Martha. Or maybe they don't, both of their mother's name was Martha. It was very unsatisfying. It was like, oh, okay, well, I guess they're going to bond together because both their parents' names were Martha. I don't know, that one, of all the things that happened in the movie, that was the most dissatisfying thing that happened in it. The movie ended because they found out, or Batman had sympathy for Clark, Superman, because his mother was captured, his human mother was captured, and her name happens to be Martha. I don't know. It felt, and it kind of gives Batman this sense of coming full circle and doing something right with the Batman persona that he took on, because he gets to save, even if it's not actually his mother, he gets to save Martha. He gets to save someone that is a mother figure, that it happens to be named Martha. That might be delving a little bit too much. This is where my English major comes in, by the way. It's him saving someone. It's him saving, it's not his mother, but it's saving a mother that happens to be Martha, to someone that is saving someone that is doing something that's being judged by others. He's being judged as the Batman, as a vigilante, and Superman is being judged as someone who has all these powers and is intervening and helping people, but he's still being looked at as a monster, or as someone who is taking his power and abusing it. And with Batman, you can kind of see that, okay, maybe Superman isn't all that bad. Maybe there is something there. He finally feels that he's been used by Lex to have them fight each other, to kill each other, to get them out of the way. But now seeing that there is someone out there like him who is troubled, who is tortured, who is affected in some way by a persona that he's been given, now he has to come in and put that to the side and save someone that you can very arguably say is his own mother. Maybe. Again, that's where my English major side comes out every once in a while when I'm watching something and when I'm explaining something. I didn't explain it very well, but that's the side of me that comes out every once in a while. And it's that. It's a bit unsatisfying that the fight ended that way, but again, it had to end some way, and maybe that was the best way they could come up with it. All right, I've rambled on long enough. This wasn't a review. It was just me talking about certain parts that stuck out to me for Batman v Superman. I'm sure there's other parts that stuck out. They didn't come to my head right away, or I felt, maybe they weren't justifiable enough for me to talk about it on the podcast, or just not big enough for me to talk about. Not justifiable, just not big enough. So yeah, thank you very much. That is my Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice podcast. Thank you very much for listening. There will hopefully be another podcast this week where we talk about all the big news items. Probably talk more about some other Batman v Superman items that are coming out. There's already a couple big news items that I will be happy to talk about on the podcast later this week. That's it. Thank you guys so much for joining me on the podcast this week. If you saw Batman v Superman this weekend and have your own thoughts and opinions on some of the big things that happened, you know what? Let me know down in the comments area. Let me know. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Did you love it? How did you feel about Batman v Superman? I will put my written review in the description / show notes area. And I'll put the Facebook page so you guys can go like it. So you guys can stay on track of what we're potentially going to be talking about on the show. There's a lot of great things that came out this weekend. 2 trailers for The Conjuring and Lights Out horror movies. They look absolutely creepy. I'm definitely going to go watch them. So go check that out. Also, and yeah, so once again, because I already said it, thank you so much for listening. I look forward to doing the podcast later this week. Talk about the big movie news items. Talk about the movies that are coming out this weekend. It's kind of a slow weekend this week, but, still, movie news. We'll talk about that. Thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, I am your host, Christian, and let me know down below what you thought about Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. And if you agree with me on some stuff, was there something you wanted me to talk about and I didn't get to talk about? Maybe I could talk about it later this week. Let me know, and I will see you guys next time.